Ladies and gentlemen, could you please take a seat and eyes forward, thank you. Got fellow councillors, phones off, please too. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And I'd like to acknowledge the traditional landowners. I wish to acknowledge that the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting, we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and to the elders of other communities who may not be with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, clause 91.4 of the Governance and Meeting Conduct Local Law provides the following. The public meeting is being recorded to improve access to the meeting for our community. The recording will be retained by Council in accordance with Council's legal obligations. As a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. We please stand for the opening prayer. Almighty God, we humbly ask Thee to bless and guide the Council in its deliberations so that we may truly preserve the welfare of the people whom we serve. Amen. Thanks for everyone for coming out here on this non-smoky evening out here at Edeye. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll run through our meeting procedure here today, and we'll get you all home early enough to spend time with your families. So all councillors are here and present, same with our corporate management staff here too today. We will have a public question time at the end. If you want to ask questions at the end in general, and I point out they are questions. Upon every issue being coming forth to Council, I will announce, does anybody have any questions? At that time, I request that you come and stand in front of the microphone before we vote on any of the issue relating to that issue, before we vote on it, and we ask you to publicly state your name and ask your question, and hopefully we can answer it for you. Thank you. So I'll just go through the confirmation of our minutes from our last meeting. We have a mover to move the minutes from our last, Councillor Fitzpatrick, and a seconder, Mark Curry. Put it to the vote that we all accept those minutes. The motion is carried. There's no hearing of deputation. Council reports. Harry Bustle, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As most people would be aware, there's a fire in the Rose River in the rural city of Wangaratta at the moment that's burnt approximately 3,300 acres. There's about 12 bulldozers working there, about 6 aircraft, and today there was 165 firefighters there. This is very steep country, very dusty, very smoky, and I'd like, on behalf of the rural city of Wangaratta, to thank all the firefighters and machine operators that are there today, because we do notice the work that these people do, and the fire is not threatening anybody, but it's a lot of work being done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bustle. I'll just go back in relation to, does any councillor here have a conflict of interest with any issue arising here tonight? Can they please put their hand forward? No, thank you. And I would like to table a petition. We received a petition moving a motion to table it, so I'll just get our CEO to read what the petition is in relation to.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The petition is to the Parliament of Victoria, but has also been copied to us. The petition in support of the Ned Kelly Centre Limited, a Kelly family not-for-profit public company to be located at Glenrowan, brings to the attention of the Parliament the support for a dedicated Ned Kelly Centre. The Ned Kelly Centre Limited is an exciting new project for regional Victoria, a museum and interactive visitor and information centre. The Ned Kelly Centre is the first museum solely dedicated to the story of one of Australia's most iconic historical figures. The undersigned petitioners therefore ask the Parliament to support the Ned Kelly Centre Limited to be located at Glenrowan, the home of the Kelly story and there are, by our calculations, 3,481 signatures enclosed.
Thanks, Brendan. So we request this report being forward to be brought back to council at a later time. We have somebody to move the Councillor Clark and Councillor Benton. Thank you. All those in favour of this? The motion is carried. Thank you. I'll go down to officers' reports and I'll start with community wellbeing. Jamie Chubb. Thank you.
Thank you. This first report is presented to Council tonight for the Active Wangaratta grants. So we have a pool of funding that is available to our community to assist clubs and not-for-profit organisations in the development of projects that will enhance the experience of people within our community. There's 2 projects that are presented to Council tonight with a total awarding of $4,000. Which are the Wangaratta Traditional Karate Association and the Wangaratta Croquet Club.
Are there any questions from the public? Mr. Fox, please step forward.
It's testing, yeah, it's on. Mr. Mayor, a month ago, we quickly gave $10 million to the swimming club. And tonight we're saying we're going to give $2,000 to 2 other clubs. Now, if $2,000 is available to purchase croquet mallets and safety mats, is there $2,000 available to every club in Wangaratta, to the Rovers Football Club, to the whatever? I just find it wrong. If I want to go swimming, are you going to buy me togs for me? If I've got to play tennis, are you going to buy me a tennis racket? I don't think that these grants are justified. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox, for your question. Community works in mysterious ways, and how they want their money and the amounts of money differ from organisation to organisation. We did mention about a swimming pool recently that will benefit the community as a whole, as will these other smaller sporting clubs as well. But we will certainly look at all sporting clubs that put in for grants, and whether money is available for certain things at certain times, well, that'll be decided on its grounds that way.
Thank you.
Okay, Jamie, we'll move on. Oh, sorry, we won't move on. I've got to put the motion forward. Can I have a mover for that motion? Councillor Fuller and Councillor Benton. All those in favour? Oh. Would you like to speak, Owen?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, the mover want to speak first? Dave was the mover. Okay, Councillor.
I'd just like to add to the information for Brian. This was about driving membership to recruit more people to play in these particular sports. So that's the justification behind these types of grants, is to boost membership. So that's how these ones came about.
Just to add to that, it's also to encourage the young, and we want one of the highest suicide rates in the state. And I think it's one way of being able to get our young people out of the couch and into the competitive, not competitive sporting arena. Is a very, very good thing.
Thank you, Harvey. Dave?
And for example, with the karate one, we know we had that through summer in the parks. It was a great turnout for that. So that just shows the growth in these fringe sports, and it's important to acknowledge the fringe sports. So yes, the swimming club might be having a $10 million grant given to them, but it's going to be for the wider use of people beyond the club itself. And the same with this karate and with the croquet club, who are, with a high number of old people in our society, yourself included, can benefit from joining croquet, because that's an opportunity for you to get out there and mingle with more people.
Thank you, Dave. All those in favour at council? The motion is carried. Thanks, Jamie. Council committees.
This second report is presented to Council tonight to seek appointments to a number of our special committees of management and also to our Sport and Recreation Advisory Committee. So as a council and as officers, we work very closely with people in our community who provide expertise and guidance to us on a number of different areas. The recommendation before Council tonight is to appoint members to our Sport and Recreation Advisory Committee and also to members of a number of our Section 86 special committees of management.
Thank you, Jamie. Dave, do you want to announce first the people before question, or do you want me to go to the public first? Okay, any questions from the public in relation to this matter? Thank you.
So I would like to move the motion and name Walter Pasquale, Sue Sinnott and Kerry Stort as the appointees for the Sport and Rec Advisory Committee, and to the Section 80 committees, Rob Ambrose, Carolyn Trepalin, Sarah Tachalashvili, Shane Gardner and Marion Walker.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Clark. Would you like to talk any further, Dave?
I'd like to thank these people for putting their names forward. It's important to have new people coming into our committees like this, and especially a couple of the young ones that I know from these groups that are coming on board to help these local community groups get together with their hall committees and such.
Any other councillor like to talk in relation to this? No? Thank you. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move on to Infrastructure Services. Alan, 15.1.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So this report is brought to Council to consider endorsing the proposed CBD pedestrian improvements work, including the pedestrian priority crossings and the 40 km/h speed limit throughout the CBD. So this was first identified as part of the Wangaratta project. We've been working on it with Vic Roads ever since. The first two pedestrian crossings that were approved in Oven Street are being constructed at the moment as part of the Oven Street project. And this report details a further 4 pedestrian crossings, 2 in Ford Street, a further 1 in Oven Street and 1 in Reed Street, as well as the speed limit throughout the CBD. So there's been fairly widespread consultation. We had a lot of interest from the public, and it was virtually all very much in favour of the proposal. There was only a couple of people who spoke against, believing that the crossings would delay vehicle traffic for the benefit of pedestrians. So the recommendation tonight is that Council endorse the attached plans for the CBD pedestrian improvements, including pedestrian priority crossings and the 40 km/h speed reduction throughout the CBD.
Thank you, Alan. Any questions from the gallery? Mr Fox, please.
I'm just a touch confused here, Mr Mayor. Are we talking about 15.2, Wangaratta car parking?
No. 15.1, which does include the CBD pedestrian crossings as well as the 40 km/h speed limit through the CBD of Wangaratta.
So the pedestrian crossings, this is specific about the crossings. Thank you. I'll talk on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Any other questions? No? Move the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Clark. And a seconder? Mark Curry to second it. Mark, could you just add your alternative recommendation in relation to the 40 kilometre?
I'd just
like Ken then wants to accept it.
So I proposed that along Tone Road from Warby Street at the 40 kilometre Riley Street, is it? Sorry, Riley Street, from Riley Street onwards, instead of having the 40 kilometre school zone come in and out, that we just start the 40 kilometres there, so rolling into town and out of town is very consistent and doesn't confuse motorists. So if we can extend it from Riley Street, Warby Street to Riley Street.
Warby Street through to Riley Street to the roundabout of Ford Street and beyond. Councillor Clark, are you happy to have that in your, as the mover? Does anyone want to talk about that specific, Council? No? Sorry, Harry? Councillor Russell?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As this council prepares to grow Wangaratta over the next 10 years, we hope that the city grows by 10,000 people, and this is preparing for the CBD to be a bustling place. And it's a very, very good piece of work, and I hope that all my councillors support this motion.
Thank you. No other conversation from councillors. I'll put the motion forward. Is everybody in favour? The motion is carried. Alan, 15.3. Sorry, 15.2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is presented to Council to consider the endorsement of the Wangaratta Parking Report, which was titled Getting the Balance Right for Our Community. It details a number of priority actions in relation to the supply of car parking in Wangaratta. It's been out for public consultation for 2 months, and we had 36 responses to that consultation. Most of those were about proposed changes in Rowan Street, where we were talking about changing parallel parking into 45-degree parking, and there was a fairly high degree of opposition to that proposal. On the basis that proposal for Rowan Street has been removed from the report, so no changes to Rowan Street are now included in this report with the recommendations that go to Council tonight. So the recommendation is that Council endorse the Wangaratta Car Parking Report, Getting the Balance Right for Our Community, and adopts the guiding principles for parking for the next 5 years, being prioritise pedestrians over vehicles within the CBD precinct, minimise net loss of parking spaces within the CBD and hospital precincts, continue to move and develop all-day parking to outside the core CBD precinct, implement no net increase to parking metres within the CBD precinct, and continue to support alternate all-day parking options such as the multi-deck car park and council parking permits.
Councillor Curry.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to put forward a motion that we defer this particular item to the next General Council meeting.
Okay. So I have a seconder there, so we've got a mover and a seconder. I'm not going to put it to the public. It's being deferred. It can be talked about later on. Are all councillors in favour of moving this motion to the next council meeting to defer this item and move it to the next council meeting being the 17th of April, around about that date? All those in favour? The motion is carried. It's on the 16th of next month. Thank you, Councillor Curry. That motion is deferred. We'll now move on to 15.3. Thank you, Alan.
So this report's presented to Council in response to a petition that was tabled at the February ordinary meeting of Council. And it was a petition regarding or requesting the reduction of the speed limit along Shanley Street in Wangaratta, and it was the part of Shanley Street which is to the west of Fulby Range Road. So we took this proposal to the Traffic Liaison Group meeting, which is the group that determines such things, and it consists of Vic Roads, Council and Vic Police. And just let me get back to the right report. They looked at various statistics, and the stats show that there's 118 vehicles per day. Only 1.5% of these is a heavy vehicle, which on average is 1.7 heavy vehicles per day, and the mean average speed on that road is 80 kilometres an hour. So the Traffic Liaison Group decided it wasn't warranted to change the speed limit on that road, and Vic Roads, being the authority for speed limits, decided that it would remain as is. So the recommendation tonight is that Council receives this report and advises the first signatory of the actions.
Thank you, Alan. Any response from the public? No? Can I have a mover for that motion, please, councillors? Harvey Bussell, and a seconder, Councillor Clark. Harvey, would you like to... Harry Bussell. Did I get that mixed up? It's a common denominator, these two. Harry.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I think the first thing we need to do is put bigger name badges on us so that you can actually read, or get you another pair of glasses. No, I don't have much to say about this. It's clearly the traffic's not that fast overall, so I'm happy with that.
Any other response from councillors? In that case, I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Alan, 16.2, draft Wangaratta Health Precinct Structure Plan.
One more for me, Mr Mayor.
Oh, is it? Sorry, everyone skipped over one. Sorry, 15.4, sorry, Organics Processing Plant Construction. Flipped over one.
Thank you. So this report's presented to Council to declare the contract amount for the organics processing plant construction following negotiations with the awarded tenderer. So we've done this a little differently to normally. Normally we award a contract at a council meeting, and then once that's awarded we declare the contract price on the same night. In this case we are still in negotiation with our preferred contractor, trying to squeeze a few more dollars out of them. So we delayed for a month, but we're now in a position to declare the contract price for the organics processing plant, and that price is $3,303,474.50.
Thanks, Alan. Any community consultation on this one? Thank you. Can I have a movement, please, Councillor Benton Harvey? And a seconder? Councillor David Fuller. Thank you. Would anybody like to talk in relation to this? No? No? Okay. All councillors, I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Stephen, 16.1. Environmental Upgrades Agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is requesting council to consider putting in a program of environmental upgrade agreements. Basically, these agreements are between a property owner, a bank and local council, and aims to facilitate a building upgrade to improve energy efficiencies, reduce waste and or reduce water use. It's basically a loan system which helps building owners to make upgrades that not only benefit the environment but could also help with some economic outcomes. The key thing there to note is that it's a cost-effective mechanism for local government to assist with local businesses in the municipality to reduce rising operational and business costs. In terms of council's role for these, our role is simple, and that's basically to collect the repayments through our council charge system. And the recommendation tonight is for council to endorse the establishment of an environmental upgrade agreement program, appoint Better Building Finance to administer the delivery of the program, delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power to enter into environmental upgrade agreements on behalf of the council, and the power to declare and levy an environmental upgrade charge.
Thank you, Stephen. Any public questions? Mr. Fox, please.
I thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know nothing about the environmental upgrade or anything about that. What I do want to question is number 4. Number 4 says to delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the power to declare and levy environmental upgrade charges. Do I take that to mean that the Chief Executive Officer can increase the cost of removing my yellow bin? The CEO is shaking his head. It doesn't.
Doesn't include that.
What I'm concerned about is that staff making an increasing cost to the ratepayer, and the councillors are going to cop it in the ear. So thank you.
Through the Mayor, this arrangement simply enables, for example, a business owner in Wangaratta who wants to do some sort of upgrade to their premise that has an environmental sustainable slant, for example. They can go to one of the financiers who's approved under this program, so not to council but to other external lenders, to borrow an amount of money to put in, say, air conditioning or insulation or some other improvement to their building. under terms agreed. Our involvement in this is simply to collect that repayment on behalf of whoever that lender is and pass it on to them. So point 4 is simply giving me the authority for that individual who has entered into that borrowing agreement, for me to make that a charge on their property so that we can collect it along with rates, garbage recycling charges and those sorts of things, and then pass on the component of this that's relevant to the lender. So it's only applicable to the person who's actually gone out and sought finance. It's not something that applies broadly to anybody else.
Well, thank you for your explanation.
Thank you. Any other questions from the gallery? I'll put it to councillors. Can I have a mover for that? Dave, Councillor Fuller. A seconder, Councillor Fitzpatrick. David, would you like to talk in relation to this?
Just further to Brendan, in his example around that air conditioning and things like that, there's great ways for businesses to now look at their business and see where there's an opportunity to reduce energy costs or something to that effect by upgrading equipment within their building, cool rooms instead of standalone fridges or something to that effect. So it's a great opportunity for businesses to take on board these loans as a way of supporting that infrastructure.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Fitzpatrick, any other councillors? Harvey Benton?
Just Mr. Mayor, just following on from Councillor Fuller, I think to our economic development, I think this has really got to be explained fairly well out to the community, because it doesn't only relate to just town, urban people, it can relate to your property, rural properties. I was under the briefing, I think my memory serves me property, there's some dairy farmers that in the south that actually entered into a couple of these agreements over the to handle their environmental waste. So it'll be something that may explore before you start doing any environmental things in relation to your business.
Thank you, Councillor Benton. Councillor Bussell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the face of this seems like quite a good idea. What I don't like is turning our CEO into a bank manager, and I think that he has enough to do than be worrying about loans to people. So I, Mr. Mayor, can't support this for that very reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bussell. Councillor Fuller, would you like to reply? No. No. I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour of the motion? The motion is carried. 16.2, Stephen, draft Wangaratta Health Precinct Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is about the draft Wangaratta Health Precinct Structure Plan, which has been prepared for the rural city of Wangaratta by SJB Urban and is ready for public exhibition. The plan, or the draft plan, is in response to an identified need within the Wangaratta planning scheme, which is listed within one of the clauses there, which really is about undertaking some work within that precinct to support medical users and avoid interface conflict issues within that precinct. The study area for the structure plan is basically the area around the private hospital and the public hospital, so that area and surrounds. I think it's important just to look at the purpose of the project, and that's to develop a long-term guiding framework for land use and build form within the precinct. That will coordinate ongoing changes in land use, movement, access, build form, character and public areas. The draft document, which is attached to the council agenda, includes a vision, objectives and strategies for the precinct, and also very specific place-based guidance. Being attacked by flies here, sorry. As part of the plan, it also includes recommendations for implementing the objectives and vision for that area, including how the planning scheme could be changed in the future. And also it includes a framework to guide the upgrade of streetscapes and public spaces, amongst other things. The plan also includes an implementation plan, so how will we roll out the plan, how will we actually achieve the changes that we need to achieve. In terms of the process that we follow to come up with these plans, the first step in this case is known as background analysis, and that includes the development of a draft plan. That is what is in front of council at the moment. The next step, if council agrees, is to do consultation and engagement. After that, the plan can be finalised and move forward to implementing. So tonight, the recommendation is for council to endorse the draft Howard Precinct Structure Plan for community consultation purposes, and to invite submissions regarding the draft plan for a period of 1 month, commencing on Friday the 22nd of March and closing on Friday the 26th of April.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions from the gallery? No? I'll put the motion to council. We've got a mover, Councillor Fuller, and I'll take Councillor Clark. Councillor Fuller, you're the mover. Would you like to?
I'd just actually like to amend the dates simply because of Easter and Anzac Day, and ask that we potentially extend it out to 60 dates, so the closing would be the equivalent Friday, but in May. If you're going to move that amended motion, please.
Stephen, is that date okay to move it out? You don't see any problems? Okay. Well, I'll put the motion back to councillors. David, you're part of that motion. Councillor Clark, are you happy to accept that motion? Okay. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The plan is not very clear in the minutes, but it does take into account the liaison between both the base hospital and the private hospital. So, in arriving at this decision, the planners have said we need to make sure that both the hospitals are covered in this submission, and not just the base hospital. So the area has been extended to go down Templeton Street and take into account the private hospitals. So at the top of the page is number 2 is the private hospitals. It's not being forgotten in this health precinct plan.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Would anybody else? Councillor Fitzpatrick.
I just want to say I strongly recommend our community to make submissions and provide feedback on this draft. I think it's great for us to know how you feel about the structure regarding, appropriate car parking, safety, all abilities, public transport. These are both such vital precincts in our area that we all use. And I think, we need to know how you feel about the draft, so please put in your submissions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. No other councillors? Councillor Bussell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Health is our biggest employer in Wangaratta, and this draft plan will provide a lot of opportunities into the future. So, yes, I support Councillor Fitzpatrick. We want the feedback because there's going to be a lot of opportunities in this precinct in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bussell. I'll put the motion forward. If there's no Dave, did you want to write a reply? I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Stephen, 16.3, the telecommunications tower at the Bar Reserve precinct.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is about a planning permit application that we have in front of us for a telecommunications facility at the HP Bar Reserve. It's approximately 40 metres to the north of the existing swimming pool. The proposed facility is a 35-metre high monopole with attached telecommunications equipment. Formal notice of this application was given to nearby affected landowners and occupiers in December last year, and at the time of writing this report we received 10 objections to this proposal. The application has been assessed and all associated information included in that assessment, and has been considered against the provisions of the Wangaratta Planning Scheme. The officer's recommendation is that council resolve to issue a notice of decision to grant the planning permit with subject to conditions, and those conditions are attached to this report. And the second recommendation is to advise the applicant and all submitters of council's decision.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions from the gallery? Please step up. Just state your name, the council agenda, so we will know.
Hello, my name's Joan Comer and I live in Park Lane, so I'm directly impacted by this poll. My question to you is this EME report, has this been verified with the, now wait for it, Australian Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Agency? Okay, so that's my question. So can you read what that is? Elliot's here from Optus.
I might just start.
Sorry.
Might just start?
Yes.
Is that right?
So just stay and you've got a couple of
I've got
questions?
a couple more, yes.
Okay.
So the information in front of us as part of this planning permit application is that has been assessed, and you've got the report in front of you. Our information in it is that it's well below the levels stipulated by the agencies that regulate this area, and that was considered as part of our planning permit application process.
Okay, well I spoke to an expert at the Australian Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Agency today, and he said this EME report is not from a 5G transmitter. So this information is inaccurate. So that needs to be verified before you even consider approving this mobile phone tower. 5G is much more powerful and you need to get these right. If you're going to have people swimming, playing underneath these towers. Okay, that's my first question. My second question is why is Huawei on these plans? Huawei has been banned from participating in the 5G network from September 2018. This could be considered a national security issue. You can have a look, see their names stand on the plans there. I have referred it to the Home Affairs Office, Minister Peter Dutton, just in case. So.
Thank you.
So, Stephen, yes.
Just in terms of your first question again, when we look at planning permit applications, we have very specific provisions within the planning scheme that we need to cover off on. In this case, the communications facility itself is regulated under the Telecommunications Act. There's also a code of practice involved there. There's also the Australian Communication and Media Authority, which looks after electromagnetic emissions. Our information is that the application does meet their requirements, and that's what we considered when we looked at this application. We have no evidence that it doesn't meet those requirements.
Well, it doesn't, according to the chief expert at the Australian Radiation Protection and Nuclear Safety Agency. This is not from a 5G transmitter. This could be a TV antenna for all we know. You need to verify this before you approve it, because we are talking electromagnetic radiation. Okay? So it's something you need to do due diligence with. That's my, and I've got a third question.
Second question about the name on the plans. When we look at planning permit applications, we generally try and focus on the physical nature of the development. So in this case, you know, it's about the tower, where it's located, what the surrounding land uses are. Whether a company name is on the plans wouldn't really be considered as part of the planning process.
It is if that company's been banned from participating in the 5G network. So if Huawei was going to build the tower, is that they can't build the tower now because they're not allowed to. So who is building the tower? Anybody?
I'm uncertain about who will actually end up building the tower. At the end of the day, this is an Optus application, and they will probably have a contractor building the tower if it gets approved. Again, you know, the planning scheme doesn't say, oh, you have to consider the company names on maps and plans. It really talks about, you know, what are the considerations, and part of that is, you know, what are the surrounding impacts on other land uses in that area. And we have considered all aspects that we are required to consider under the planning scheme.
Yes, except the electromagnetic magnetic emissions, which is the big thing, I think. Also, I want to know who's building that. As I live opposite, I want to know who's building this tower. So, you know, a bit of transparency here would be great. So, also, my third question is, if you were to approve this tower, would you do regular testing of radiation on the ground? You've got a duty of care to the people who work and play in this precinct. And so you need to make sure that that radiation, this 5G radiation, which is much more powerful than 4G, is not hitting these people on the ground. That's it.
Yeah, Stephen?
The short answer to that is no, we won't be doing any testing. That part of this is regulated by another authority, so the Australian Communication and Media Authority, and that would be their responsibility if there were any concerns around this.
But if there were concerns and there was a high radiation reading on the ground, you are the consenting authority. So if there was to be litigation in the long term, they wouldn't be suing hands up. They would be coming after the council. Just something to be very wary of. You've got to do your due diligence with this and make sure it is safe. And I don't think it should be there at all. Put it somewhere else. Put it somewhere away from the children, the splash park. So that's me. Thanks.
Thanks, Joan. Elliot, would you like to talk on any of the matters there? Do you have anything to raise? Please come forward. Just state your name and the organisation you represent.
My name's Elliot. I am with Catalyst. We act on behalf of Optus with this application. I'm the applicant for the application. Very quickly, with regard to 5G, 5G isn't part of this application. The proposed tower will be 4G. With regard to the EME report, the EME report is a predictive report based on the maximum possible output of the tower that is possible. That's based on the type of antennas, the type of infrastructure, the height of the tower, the surrounding environment, and that has all been considered in the level. Is there anything else that you'd like me to cover?
Thank you.
No worries.
Are there any other questions from the gallery? Please, the board. Just state your name for the record so it's on.
Dave Hocking, resident of Park Lane. The visual effect on this tower that is putting in and the adjacent pool that is building and the trees that's going to be removed, I'm worried about the visual effect it's going to have on the residents, and with the new pool that's going to be adjacent to it. And you're going to have a lot of kids in there. You're trying to make it into a public arena where you get interstate competitions, maybe even international competitions, or whatever you propose. But why would you want to put a tower beside a pool that's going to be host this sort of events? And it's going to be seen from as far as the HB Bar Reserve being a 36.7 metre or 120 foot tower. That's my question.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. I think it's acknowledging this officer's report that this tower will definitely have a visual impact on the reserve and surrounding areas because it is quite a high tower. We believe that the location of the tower actually minimises the visual impact. So minimise doesn't mean that there won't be any, but the location helps with that. The reason for that is it's some distance away from the closest house, which is about 200 metres away from the closest house. There's some trees in that area that will help with some visual screening. There's also some large structures in that area already that could help with that as well, including towers for lighting that are proposed into the future. So, you know, relatively speaking, the location probably, in our mind, not probably in our mind, is a good location. and minimises the visual impact. You could, this could have gone in another location where that impact could have been unacceptable from a planning point of view.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes, please, Joan. Come forward again.
It's not really to you, it's to Elliot.
Yes.
Elliot, why would you build a 4G tower when that's old technology? Phones are going to be 5G. Why would you build a 4G tower there?
At this time, there aren't really many mobile devices that do receive a 5G signal. So, at this time, 5G plus there's specifically what 5G looks like when it gets rolled out in the next 1 or 2 years. There's still a lot of unknowns for that, and accordingly, it's not within the scope. In the event that the tower were to be upgraded to 5G in the future, the EME report will also be updated, and any upgrades will be in accordance with the Australian standards as well.
Thank you, Elliot. Thank you, Elliot. Just before we go, are there any other further questions from the gallery? Phil? Please state your name, Phil.
Phil Larkin of Moyu. The tower at Moyu, is that 4G or 5G? 4G, okay.
Thanks, Phil. Good. No further questions?
Oh, this tower here is around, is this the same one? Is that 4G?
4G, this one. Sorry? Elliot, Mark, Councillor Curry has a question for you, just quickly.
Just a little bit. I'm in agreement with some of these. With these objectives, I didn't swear, thankfully. But what I'm concerned, in retrospect, just thinking, because I'm not an expert in this field, so just for information, is there other locations in other towns very similar to where you're putting this one in from Optus? So this tower in Wangaratta, is there other towns in the region where it's in very similar sporting complexes and so forth?
I know of a few, mostly locally where I'm from in Perth. Specifically, we have had one approved in the town of Dunsborough, which is also very similar, and with that we've been able to have the opportunity to swap the lights onto the pole and just put the antennas on top. And so very similar in design. Obviously any lighting will be subject to a separate process.
So moving on from that, so the space there is pretty sparse and there's intermittent. Do you have towers in a more condensed area? So talking about people and so forth within a closer proximity, do you have it in a suburban area or anything like that?
I have seen plenty of towers. Just trying to think of. Every location is completely different.
There's a tower in the main street of Wangaratta, and the old bowls club behind there is a telecommunications tower with 4G. So it's a fully constructed tower right on the CBD.
Yeah, to be effective, the towers really have to be near the people that they're supposed to service, and so with this particular location, we think we have found the right balance. I included a detailed visual impact assessment within the development application itself, and in this case, we consider the benefits of the tower to far outweigh minimal impact visually.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll put the motion forward to Council. Do I have a mover for this telecommunication? Councillor Curry, and a seconder? Councillor Bussell. Would anybody like to talk? Any councillor like to talk on the tower at hand? Councillor Bussell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had a very exciting day here and opened up a mobile phone tower in Edine this afternoon. It's made a huge difference to people here. Mr. Mayor, this looks like the haves and the have-not to me. Up here in the bush, we have many places with no mobile service, and we'd be happy with extra telcos, and so the have-nots will be happy with just about anything up here. and the haves complaining because there's too much choice in Wangaratta. And I'm sure that my children will condemn me in the future if I thought that this was going to cut it in telecommunications. This for the future will not cut it. So, from my point of view, from up here in the bush, this to me sounds like townies whinging. That's what it sounds like to me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Harvey Benton, Councillor Benton.
Just got a question to Steve. If it does get upgraded to 5G, is there any requirements that it has to come back before council, or is it just the structure we're voting on? Requirements.
Thank you for that question. As far as I'm aware, the planning scheme wouldn't trigger a fresh permit under those circumstances, but there are some requirements to be met through other authorities, and that's what Elliot alluded to early on.
Thank you, Stephen. No more questions, or Councillor Curry, would you like to finish?
Just quickly, I'd like to thank everybody that has objected. And regardless of some comments that are thrown around, we actually do appreciate hearing what you actually say and what you think. I think as a council, we try and look to the future and what's best for Wangaratta as a whole. So without trying to put any fire or anything, I am saying thank you, but there does seem that there is the precedence is already set. The safety is paramount for the people. We believe that the structure in place that people have to abide by, certainly telecommunications and so forth, that it is all correct. And with that, we have to vote with that in mind, that the information that we are being fed is correct. And that that people and government aren't going to put people's health and safety at risk. So, from a confidence point of view, I am. There's already towers in high dense areas and so forth, and the people that are actually away, so I feel confident that people are going to stay.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. I'll put the vote to council. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, Stephen. We'll go on to item 17, special committee reports, advisory committee reports. I'll hand it over to our CEO, Brendan McGrath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll deal with, or I'll suggest we deal with item 18.1 and 19.1 together, as we have in recent times. 18.1 recommends council notes minutes of a series of advisory committees that met through February, and item 19.1 is asking council to receive and note assemblies of councillors for meetings that occurred through Feb and March.
Do we have any public consultation on that? Not. I'll look for a mover of that. Councillor Harvey Benton, a seconder. Councillor Ashley Fitzpatrick. Would anybody like to talk on this? No? Well, in that case, I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour? The motion is carried. There's no notices of motion or urgent business here tonight. I will now come down to public question time. Here before us, is there any public question time? Any public questions? Mr. Fox, please step forward.
Brian Fox, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got two questions tonight. I probably got 10 questions, but I just moved these two to the top. Tonight we talked about the hospital and how the medical industry is the biggest employer in Wangaratta. And this is wonderful because all roads lead to Wangaratta. You can get into Wangaratta from about 6 different directions. And that's the beauty of our town. I believe there's a barrier between the CBD and the hospital, and that is the railway line. And we've had meetings reported in the paper, and I'm sorry I didn't get to the meetings to talk. However, I believe it's possible to put in a road level pedestrian crossing near the water tower in Norton Street. I believe that if you called for expressions of interest from people around the world to design some sort of sliding cage, sliding gates, lights, electronics, whatever. I say this, sir, because I don't know the numbers, but I'm having an educated guess. But I would reckon that the railway line is being used by a train probably for 1 hour and every 24. So we've got the line closed off to pedestrian traffic for 23 hours because of some mythical train that's not going to turn up. Now, if in fact you lined up to go across the line and a train was coming and this gate system shut you off, you don't have to stay there. You can walk over the ramp. I'm not saying to take the ramp away. I'm just saying to put this additional thing. I also believe, sirs, that the residents that live in Spearing Street and up to the hospital, I know if I lived there and I wanted to go to Safeway to buy me Wheaties, I would get in my car and drive around under the underpass and then drive around and come back again. But if I had a street level walkway where there was no up, no down, I would walk straight across there. Now we have officers everywhere talking to me about pedestrian friendly city. And I believe it would be a great advantage to the city as a whole. It would be a great advantage to particularly to the residents there, and a super advantage to the hospital. So my question, or what I'm asking is, with the officers who are involved in this sort of thing, could they do some thinking, maybe get a sketch, maybe rationalise it with the railways? I know there will be people, safety people will throw their hands up in the air and say, oh, forget it. But gentlemen and ladies, we don't all stay home because there's an accident at the red lights, right? We need to be rational about it. And I thank you for listening to that. My second question is an experience I had yesterday. Yesterday, around 4 o'clock, the phone rang, and there was some guy on the other end of the phone. And when I said, hello, Brian Fox here, how can I help you? And he said, are you a farming property? I said, no, why do you want to know that? He said, I'm running a survey for the Wangaratta, the rural city of Wangaratta. I said, good. And he said, have you got time to answer questions? I said, certainly. So after he asked me was a farming property, then he asked me, was it a business? I said, no, purely residential. My wife and I live here. He said, could I speak to the youngest person in the house over the age of 18? I said, you're actually speaking to him. And then after a couple more stupid questions, he said, how old are you? And I said, 80. I left the 2 off. I said, 80. And he said, you don't fit our criteria. Thank you very much, sir, for your time, and hung up. Now, I rationalised there's 2 things going to happen here. I asked Alan McDonald what he thought about it earlier on before the meeting, and Alan is under the belief that this was done by either state or federal government, even though this guy said on behalf of the rural city of Wangaratta. But I haven't seen the state or federal government do anything for a local council without sending them a bill for doing it. So my first question is that if a bill arrives for this survey that was held in March 2019, send it back to the centre. don't pay it. A survey is a genuine survey, but this thing is a load of nonsense. You're not allowed to be a farmer, you're not allowed to be in business, you've got to be over 18 and under 80. So the second thing that's likely to happen is in a year or two, when the statisticians get hold of all the data, that we will be supplied with a report based on this survey. Well, the other thing I'm asking you, after you haven't paid for it, don't take any notice of it. File it in the round bin, because it won't be worth the paper it's written on. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. I just might help clear that question up. Have we got a survey out at this time, Brendan, asking about farm properties, or could it be a hoax or something along those lines? They didn't ask for your credit card, Mr. Fox, did they?
They didn't ask what?
For your credit card number?
No. It was not one of those. I know those people.
How well?
To the best of my knowledge, we're not currently conducting any surveys. I am aware, and I think this is what Alan Clark mentioned to you earlier, I am aware that the state government commissions on behalf of all local governments in Victoria a survey of a random sample, I think of 400 people in each municipality, and we get a report back with the outcome of those survey results. Those surveys are being undertaken by telephone, and I think are currently being undertaken. So I'm speculating, but I'm guessing it's most likely it was in response to that. As I said, I'm really only guessing because I wasn't a party to the conversation, but certainly no survey being carried out by the council directly that I'm aware of. I imagine they would have said it was on behalf of the Wangaratta Rural City Council because they are surveying people within our municipality as they are in the other 78 municipalities. So my best guess would be that's what the survey was about.
Just appreciate it. Remember the two things: don't pay the bill and don't take any notice of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Are there any other questions from the public? Yes, sir. Please come to the microphone. Oh, just excuse me, sir, one moment. But please stay standing up. Just in the answer to relation Brian's first question in relation to the train line, that we will report this to the ARTC for their consideration. Would that be correct?
We'll just feed that back to the ARTC who are doing the work on the rail upgrades. They're the people who know whether these things can be done and how they can be done. So we're happy to pass along that suggestion.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, Robert Cook, probably class myself as being a fairly long time resident of Edi Upper. I'd like to thank you for bringing the council meeting to this suburb of Wangaratta. Edi Upper, we are certainly in the growing area of King Valley, and I think most of us have realised that King Valley is very much part of the Wangaratta area. My questions probably relate, getting back to the review that Brian talked about, I had 2 phone calls from that fellow. He was a bit of a foreigner. First time I hung up, next time he said he was doing a survey on behalf of the rural city of Wangaratta, and he actually didn't ask me my age, Brian. So anyway, he's on the money, but I didn't really, I thought he got tangled up by it. I got sick of him in the end, and I said, bye-bye, like I do to a lot of them. But anyway, getting on to what my part is with Edi Upper. I've lived here and driven the roads for a long time, and as you would have noticed coming out from Wangaratta into this lovely part of the country, the road, and I'll bring it up, and I suppose I'm a bit like a cracked record, but the Wangaratta Whitfield Road, other than for some of the sections, is, to put it mildly, is BA. We are now experiencing large trucks, B-double trucks and school buses sharing that road. And we had a B-double load of fertiliser come to our property today, and he didn't know the road, and he said, holy hell. He said it's a bit hard to keep a B-double on there when you meet a school bus. And I think we all realise that. So I know it's a Vic Roads road, but I would love to see it put to Vic Roads that we want to see upgrade, even the shoulders widened or something in sections of it that's terribly narrow. The other one is in my backyard, and it's a section of road that is also travelled now by school buses and B-doubles, and it's about 2 kilometres from here. It hasn't changed in all of my years here, and I think without prejudice, I am the oldest travelling residents on that road, but it's damned awful, to say the least. For a school bus and a B-double to be travelling on that same section of road, and I do notice that the council have put an arrow around one of the large trees which says, well, for a B-double you need to go over there, but if something's coming that way we can't see you. But anyway, I'd just like that to be looked at. And also there's another one that I've brought up several times, and there was 2 young people killed there a long time ago on this corner, and each time I bring it up and I have an engineer come out and they said, well, there's a lot of bad bends on this road. Well, yes, but there's been 2 young ones killed there, and that's had nothing done to it. So just as an Edi Upper residents, thank you for bringing the council out here into this lovely part. I know Councillor Clark likes it, and Mr Bustle, and well, I know most of their faces here. So once again, thank you for the chance to be able to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for your time. And Brendan,
Oh, thanks, Robert.
Sorry.
We got so used to answering Brian's
I was going to say used to answering Brian. Yeah.
Robert, I might address your first issue in relation to the width of the Whitfield Road. Please sit down.
Yeah.
And I might hand over to Alan to talk about the other 2. My understanding is that Vic Roads have been given additional funding for shoulder sealing and road widening across the state. We've advocated numerous times for the Wang Whitfield Road to have that sort of treatment, and we'll continue to do so. Vic Roads has a newly appointed regional director, so we will take the opportunity to meet with him fairly soon, and we'll make sure that the Wang Whitfield Road is on that list, as we have done in the past. So we're happy to keep pushing that one. I think we would agree that it is in need of shoulder improvements, for sure.
You probably need to call it a tourist road, because it certainly is on most weekends, and on some of the weekends not in need traffic lights.
I think you're quite right. I think that adds weight to the argument, because you've got lots of people who are unfamiliar with the conditions travelling, and lots of bike riders who need space to be able to get off the main carriageway.
Ellen, did you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Just a little bit more on your first question. What really helped the Wangaratta Whitfield Road, I think, with some of the things you're talking about, is when there was public consultation a while ago that Vic Roads ran, that issue got widespread support, and it became the #1 project, if you like, in the region. So it is on their books, and it sits fairly high on their books, and a large part of that is because people responded when they asked the comments. So it is up there. Will it fix all of it straight off? I wouldn't think so. It'll get done in bits and pieces, but it's right up there. Your other issues, you and I have spoken about this for the last 5 years, and I know you've spoken to others beforehand. Certainly acknowledge the issue where the deaths occurred, and it's probably 20 odd years ago now, is it? The road, yes, we'd love to go through and widen that whole road, but the reality is it is very similar to many of the 1,200 odd kilometres of unsealed roads we've got in Wangaratta. So we simply, when we look at the funds to do that sort of work, they're they're simply not there. So it's still on the books. We keep putting in for grant funding to do a couple of roads, and that's one of them. We haven't been successful at this stage. We could look at B doubles moving on the road, because I don't think it's a B double road, of course, but you probably don't want that to happen either.
Well, we've got to have B doubles. That's the modern way.
The trouble is the roads are designed or built to be doubles, and that brings in some of the very problems that you're talking about.
Well, in my time it was A model forwards. Yeah.
Thanks, Robert. Any other questions from the gallery? Dave? Dave, thanks, Dave.
Just want to touch back on this Optus Tower there. Question for both Councillor and Elliot. Why does it have to go, and agree with Terry Bussell about we need the infrastructure, but why did it have to go where it's going to go? And why can't it go further back, like say down behind the Bowls Club, away from the public vision of such a high profile tower? Because it is going to be very substantial to what's going on around the area. And at least back there further, it won't be as visual to the eye, and it won't be, it's only, we're only talking a couple hundred metres of it.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Good question.
So, Dave, from Council's perspective, I guess our role as the planning authority is to assess the applications presented to us. We don't ordinarily get too involved in the selection of appropriate sites and locations. We can and do, I guess, have conversations with applicants about those matters, but largely it's up to whoever the telco is who's applying to determine what the best location is, and we then assess it on its merits on that basis. I don't know that I want to put Elliot on the spot as a member of the gallery to answer it. He might be happy to talk to you after the meeting about it, but from our perspective, we get an application, we assess it on its merits based on where the applicant wants to site it and the information they present by and large.
Any other questions from the gallery? Yes, sir.
John Kirby from Moyu.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. I'd like to support Robert talking about the road, and I think you would all recognise when you turned off at Edi, the Edi turn off, how narrow that road is. And at the moment there's quite a deal of grape harvesting going on, and they mightn't be P doubles, they're semi-trailers and trucks with trailers, and there's the drivers have mentioned to me that the ones I've spoken to in Moyu, that it is a pretty dangerous area when they're passing one another. Not only that, of course, deer and kangaroos and wombats and what have you, you can't help them coming onto the road, but they haven't got very far to move. They're off the shoulder of the road. And I know that I hammer this one all the time, but also for push bike riders, it's pretty dangerous. There's just nowhere to go. And if I may just support our city cousins with that tower, I do wonder about that. I feel for, well, I go to the Bar Reserve, and probably all of you do, and I'm just thinking of the electromagnetic effect there. I don't quite understand it, but there we are all swimming away or doing our exercise, and we've been affected by that. If we are, I just wonder why that tower couldn't be just nearby over the river. Why does it have to be that close to a large population and a population of young people? It just doesn't ring true with me. I don't know about you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, John. No further questions from the gallery. Ladies, sorry, ma'am, we're at the back.
Suzanne Sims, Edi Upper. Just like to thank Robert for for getting up and speaking about the roads. I travel it twice a day, sometimes 4 times a day in a car, but I'm following B doubles, following milk tankers, we're now following log trucks, and they're not B doubles, they're 3 triples, and they're off the road. These poor bike riders, I don't know how someone's not been killed. Seriously, bad, and we want people to come out to Edai, we want them to come out to Whitfield, we want them to, this is a tourist area. The wineries, it's beautiful, but we don't want anyone getting hurt and we don't want anyone getting killed. So thank you, the big roads have got it on their agenda. There's coaches, there's the other thing I'd like to bring up is overhanging branches. Is the council got an overhanging tree branch policy? Because I'm seeing limbs dropping left, right and centre. If you drive out along our road at the moment, there's a huge one that's probably about to go, and there's school coaches and small buses going along there. So do we report it to you? Do we take photos and send it in? Sorry, I'm really nervous.
Firstly, on the Vic Road roads, they do listen. So when they do ask for public consultation, it really pays to get in there with as many people as you can and voice your view, because it will move you up the list and has done in this particular case. Tree limbs dropping, there's tree limbs dropping everywhere. Do we have a policy about tree clearance? We have a requirement to keep a clear zone under the travel paths on the road. So, but that's about 4.5 metres. So, so if a branch is hanging over higher than that, it doesn't mean we come along and clear it. So, and that high branch may still drop. The clearance envelope is all about stopping trucks hitting the branches. If we identify a tree that's considered dangerous, then yes, of course, we do something about it as well. But we're never going to get every limb that's dropping in dry times like this, unfortunately.
But if you see something that's considered
certainly, you
4.5
talk to us.
metres,
Yep, talk to us.
and to the people in Park Lane, all the best. We've got our tower, we look at it every day, but we couldn't object to it out here. It would mean everyone up above us had no phone service, and to have the safety putting out fires and having been able to have contact, but to have it in a really close proximity, all the best we're trying to with that. But thank you for getting this.
Okay, thank you everybody. I'll see that there's no other questions. I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you for everybody's attendance. Thank you to the good people of Edai for allowing us to use their hall and be part of their lives out here. Have a great day.